Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Comparing Bookkeeping Software with me, Ash Beetson, and in this episode we'll take a look at using the bank feed function, and that's going to be in Sage Accounting, in Zoho, FreeAgent, Xero and then QuickBooks Online. I won't go through the initial bank connection on all of these apps. It's pretty much the same every time. Sometimes you might do it part of your initial setup process. Other times you'll do it by going to the banking area and you'll see the option to connect bank or similar, and you put in your banking credentials and you go through a step-by-step process. It's pretty much identical really each time. So what I'm going to do to begin with is start by looking at how we deal with our bank entries in Sage. And what I'm going to concentrate on doing is, I'm not an expert by any means on any of these other software packages. You know, QuickBooks is really usually my thing, but I've got a good idea now of how these work. I've had a bit of a play around. I'm going to try to match transactions that already exist in our account software, try to find matches, try to add entries as well. I'm not sure if I can split. I'll find that out shortly, between one entry in the bank against different categories, if there are any bulk features in there, creating some bank rules. I'm not going to be reconciling the accounts in this episode. I'm going to do that separately because this will make it far too long, I think, if I try to deal with the bank entries and then reconcile them as well. So let's go and check out how Sage works. Okay, so here we are. I'm logged into Sage. The first thing I'm going to do is just go into banking. I'll select a draft and I'll just select view my draft transactions. So what we have at the top here is I've got the balance per my bank, and this is one of my old bookkeeping business accounts. There's not too much that goes on within here. That's the balance that's currently in the balance sheet on this Sage file. There's lots of rubbish really in here, so I'm not expecting them to balance, but I will try and reconcile it in another video and see how we get on with that. So what I can see is that I've got 60 transactions to deal with. One thing I will say is that the number of months I can go back did vary on the packages. So when I connected Sage, I made a note of this, I was actually able to go back as far as April 2023, and I may have been able to go back further than that. I'm not 100% sure, but I was able to go back 18 months anyway when on that initial connection. I have since then, because I ended up with hundreds of entries, which I didn't actually want to go through all of those, I was able to delete those, and I did that basically by on each page. I mean, as I scroll down this page, it loads about 10 entries at a time, and then as I scroll down you'll notice it starts to load another 10, and then when I had the entries on there going back, you could only do this for 50 at a time. I could choose this option here to select all, so I could select all of the entries and then choose to delete the selected, and that's why I've gone down from a few hundred entries down to sort of 60 odd that I've got here. I'll just choose that clear all, get rid of that selection. So what I can see is that I've put a couple of supplier bills on and some customer invoices as well, just to try to get up some matches, and I can see that I've got 5 matches have been found, and you can go to view matching transactions. What I did find is that I put a couple of invoices on and they didn't initially sort of appear like this with a match found until I actually clicked on this find matching transactions again, where it did a refresh and then they appeared, because I was wondering why I couldn't see it. So if I just go to view the match transactions, that basically then is going to filter that down, where if I choose to select all, again I can't match them in a batch. So I'm here, I'm just going to I don't think I can match them in a batch. No, I just need to click match on each time. So each time you click match, it basically removes it from that list. And I'll come back to my draft area I've now got 55 left in here. So when you've dealt with an entry, so I've just dealt with some matches there, and that was a mixture really of supplier bills and some customer invoices that needed paying. They've gone into this sort of completed area where you can choose to undo if you've made any mistakes there. So let's come back to my draft entries. So what I want to do now, if I were to treat this payment out to BT Group as I want to code it basically against telephone, pretty simple to do. You've got the option, in fact, if I wanted to try to find a match, so you can go into the match and see if you can find, if you might have multiple entries in there, it doesn't match up entirely, you might be able to try to match it through that way. If it was a transfer between a bank account, you can choose transfer when you will only have the option to transfer it to any other given bank account that you have in place. Here I want to actually just create an entry, so I'll choose to create that to telephone. It's not actually mandatory to put a supplier name in, a payee in. You can create one or leave it blank. So I'll just choose there to create, and now that's been added. Okay, so far we've done a couple of simple matches and we've added a entry, pretty straightforward really. And the next thing I want to do is just try the split function. So if I'm within here, you see this little icon that allows us to split. So if I let's take this entry here for 165.31, I'll choose this option to split. I can select different account categories. So let's say I want to put 100 to cost of sales, and I'm going to put 65.31 to travelling expenses. So now those two amounts should add up to the total, where I can now create the entry. Now the next thing I'm going to do is create a bank rule, and that's pretty straightforward to do as well, to be honest. You will have the option within here to create a rule. So again, let's have a look at one that's going to be fairly straightforward to do. Let's have a look. I'll use the 360 columns one to create a rule. So I choose to create a rule off the back of that. I'll give the rule a name. It's going to be telephone, and the reference, I don't want it to equal because it could be slightly different each time. It's going to contain that supplier's name, and it's a different amount each time slightly, so that's just the reference. You can have bank reference number details, so there's a bit of a selection within there, but it's usually just the reference and the amount I think that I would usually go for. The supplier name is not mandatory, it's going to be useful for reporting purposes. I'll just take that out there, 360 comms in the reference, and I'll put telephone with it in there. Again, I've not got VAT enabled because I want to do that on a separate video enabling VAT, so there's no VAT on here. I'll just choose that as a first rule option, and then save. Now when you have created that rule, if I just scroll towards the top, you'll see that this little notification comes up. You've got rules changed since I've downloaded. Let me apply or try to apply rules to pending transactions. So I'll click on that. That should then identify if there's actually some entries this relates to, and it's found there are 3. I can choose to review or just go ahead and create all, but if I go to review them first, you can choose to create using the rule that's been applied, or simply use this option there to create all. And that's created all of the entries for me. So although there aren't any batch add features in there, which I was sort of used to, the fact that you can do the rule anyway and it's probably going to be useful later is not a bad thing. as well as creating those rules from your create rule within each entry. I'll go to this rules management where I can also create a rule, and I'll just put one in here for income, and I'm just going to put where the amount is greater than or equal to £6, and here I'll just put in sales. This is for money in receipts. Make sure I use the right one and I can use the right ledger account. Sales products. And I'll choose to save. I should find I have quite a few entries within there that we can sort now. And if I just close this down, so I'll apply that, because at the moment I've got 43 left. If I apply that to pending transactions, and take a look at my transactions with rules, so there are 17 in there now. I'll just choose to create all. I just noticed that balance hasn't changed, which I'm assuming is my Sage balance sheet balance. That may update after a refresh, so I'll keep my eye on that. So far what we've done is we've done some matches, we've done some adds, we've done a split, and we've done some rules. Okay, so I'm in Zoho now, so I'm just going to head to the banking area and then select. Within here I can see the amount that's currently, what the balance is in the balance sheet per Zoho, what the balance is per the connection with my bank account. I've got some uncategorized transactions, so these are the ones that I need to work through. What's already gone into Zoho, so I've added a couple and matched one in there already. So as before, I want to try to match a transaction, find a match, add a transaction, split a transaction to multiple lines and create a rule. So I'm going to do that in all of them. So here we go. If I look through some of these entries, I'll just come a little bit further down, and I think it's an entry that I've got here. So I've not put invoices in for absolutely everything. I know what I've done. It doesn't actually automatically show in the screen, so I know that I've got a match for this particular entry here. It doesn't automatically indicate that there is a match, but if I click within that entry, it opens up and it says here's like basically that's the best possible match, and I've only got one invoice which absolutely equals that, but there are other possible matches. So I could just click on match and that will remove that from the screen. So that's been dealt with, marked the invoice as paid. If I were to select another one of these deposits, so that 1,000 could be paying off multiple invoices, then if that is the case, then I could select some of these invoices. But what I have found is, unless I've done something wrong, we need to make sure that it exactly adds up to the 1,000. You can't sort of part pay or sort of create a payment on account, from what I've seen from within here, so I can't sort of code a line to accounts receivable or debtors. So I've selected those two. I've got a difference now of £12.50, so I need to look down to see is there another invoice for £12.50 that it can match to. I could select one of those. I've got a difference of 50 pence. You can create an additional transaction from here, so I could create another entry. So if the difference needed to go to, let's say, general income, and that's the 50 pence difference, and the other way around, if you had a charge deducted and it would be a negative value, you could put it to bank charges, and that will be a deposit or withdrawal against that. So I can just choose to click save, and again that would be another entry dealt with. after I've clicked match. There we go. So I've done a match, and also I've done a multiple match there. When you're trying to do a find a match, then it would be a case of, again, you can just select, or when you're trying to do that find a match, you can sort of reduce the amount of entries that come through on this screen by creating a filter. So you can sort between a date range, you could sort between a value range, and that will minimize your list down. So that's pretty neat there. I'll just cancel that down. The next thing I want to do is just very simple, is just to add a transaction directly from here. So if I were to select this entry within here, I can just click within it. You'll notice if it doesn't sort of find anything that might possibly match, it will go to categorize. You always actually have these two tabs at the top. Do I want to try to match it or categorize it? I don't have any supplier bills outstanding in Zoho, so that's why it's going to go straight to the categorize. So from in here, I can just select that it's an expense, choose to put it to insurance or not, as the case may be. I'll just select a cost account there, but you get the idea. The date that it's gone through here, which is the 2nd of September, and all the details. You can upload a file if necessary, but all I really need to do there is choose to save, and that'll be another one coded. If you need to split that entry, so here I've got 120.42. I've actually gone straight to default to create a rule off the back of that. I don't want to do that quite yet. If I want to split this 120.42 entry, you do that by using this itemize option. So again, this is going to be an expense. It's actually defaulted to use telephone. I think I may have created a rule against this already, but not automated the rule. I can itemize, and that allows me then to split against a different category. So it's gone straight to 120 against telephone, but I can add a new row. So as an example, I've got 100 against telephone, and then on another account, let's just say cost of sales, I could put whatever the difference is, which was 20.42, and with those two values combined, I can now save that entry. So that's your split. Okay, so I want to take a look at using rules next. Earlier on, I created a little entry, and off the back of that, a pop-up appeared where I could create a rule, which I can edit at any time, and I can also manually create rules, which is what I'm about to do. Just before I do that, one thing that I noticed is there's this little toggle, multi-select and match. I really still haven't worked out exactly what this does or the true benefit of this yet. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but when I do actually switch this off, you will notice if I've got any rules in place, they are appearing here. So I can see I've got DVL expenses to motor and so on, and these rules they appear in this extra tab here. So all transactions I've got left and what's been recognised based upon my rules, and from here I now again I don't think I've seen the option to multi-add. Oh, hang on, categorise 20 transactions. So all those entries there, if I just click on categorise, yes, categorise them all. Oh, cool, that's dealt with those. So now I've only got 26 left. If I come down a little bit, let's see where I've got some payments out. What I'm going to do is let's create a rule here for basically everything that's over £1,000. I'll create a rule off the back of that. So if I go to my settings cog, I've got the option here to manage transaction rules. and I'm going to create a new rule. So I'm just going to choose to do a new rule, and let's just call it drawings, and these are for withdrawals out, and I'm just going to put that the amount in this example is greater than, let's put £1,100, and record as, there we go, owner's drawings. So that looks good, and I'll select an account here, drawings. Now I've got the option here to either put them into recognised or categorise, which allows Zoho to automatically post them for me. And I did actually do this earlier, I've just remembered, with some income values. So that's why all of my income has basically been removed from the statement, and I put it on and then I deleted that rule. But I'm going to, let's just put it to recognised. So if I choose to click save against that, and let me then come back into banking. Now, do I need to do a little refresh here? Or have I made an error on that rule? So nothing's been recognised because I was oh, here we go. It just took a second or two. So now I've got these owner's drawings. They're appearing as recognised. So all of those which basically over £1,100, I could select all of those and then choose to categorise, and yes. So I'm just left with a few more payments there, which I can deal with. So we've done a match, we've done multiple matches, we've done finding, we've done adding a transaction, and we've done the split of a transaction and creating a rule. And yeah, pretty straightforward. I think, compared to my minimal training on this, and I've not really spent I spent enough time trying to work out how to do it, but I've not had to spend a huge amount of time, let's say, on that. So far so good. Into FreeAgent now, and I'm going to head to the banking area, select my bank accounts, and select my business account. So what I have here is I can see what balance brought forward. I don't see, and just in case I'm missing anything, the actual balance per my bank as shown at the top of the screen. Theoretically, once everything's in, it should be what's here on the screen. We'll work through it, and again, when I do reconciliations in another tutorial, we'll probably see how this pans out. Now I have all the transactions that have come through on this bank connection, and from memory, checking my previous notes, yes, I was actually able to go back on FreeAgent as far as April 23 on here. Now what I haven't seen is if I have gone too far back, which I have really, I don't see an option to basically bulk remove, bulk delete these transactions. Again, I might be missing something, but through all my transactions, all my unexplained, and I'll just change that to all time periods, I don't see like a box at the top to select. Now I may be able to do a bulk select. Yeah, I can. Looks like I can go through here. Oh, actually, that's just the two transactions. I can come through here and no, I can't do. Oh yeah, I can select. If I select multiple, but I've got to go through them basically one at a time. Oh, it just appeared at the top. No. Aha. As soon as I select one, then I get another option where it looks like I can bulk delete any that I don't actually need. So I might go back and do that later. Now, what you can do on here, which I couldn't do actually in Zoho, is I could sort by description as well as date, which is quite handy because that's what I want to do. And we'll look at matching first because I want to do a match, I want to do an add, ideally a split, and look at the rules as well if I can. Now in here I've put in a few invoices. One thing I couldn't do in FreeAgent is import a load of invoices. I didn't see that option. Now I've created some invoices manually, so I know that I've got a match in here for 390, and when I click within this transaction line, it's prompting me to treat this as a receipt against an invoice against this customer, and then I can click on explain transaction, because what I have at the top is all of the transactions that have ever come through on this bank feed, and most of them are unexplained, and we've got some which are also waiting for approval. I'll come back to that in a sec. So let me just choose to explain that transaction, and that will remove it from this unexplained list. Or in fact, it's just ticked it. I thought it might remove it fully, but I did another one here as well, so I'm going to just choose to explain that transaction too. So those two entries I have explained by matching them essentially. Now what I want to do next is add a transaction. So I'm just going to select this transaction here for some drawings. So I'll click within it, and you can choose whether this is a payment as an expense of the business, or as I'm going to have here, money paid to user, which is like drawings. So we've got some other options in there too. I'm going to choose money paid to user, coding it to drawings, and I'll choose to explain that transaction. Now what is nice here, which again I didn't spot in Zoho, is this basically I could do that in bulk, because I could select all of those which are exactly the same thing. I could select all of those. I've got the option to explain 6 transactions which are all money paid to user, all to drawings, explain 6 transactions. Bosh, yeah, so that's nice and easy. I like that. Now, can I split an entry? Is my next question. So let me come down and have another look. Have a look at a. Can I sort by payment out? No, I can't. Let's just use this pay money in, so I can just split money in entry. Now I do have more options, so let me give that a go. So this is not going to be invoice receipt, it's going to be, let's say, sales. So I don't have any invoices to match that, and I've got more options. And let's put that to sales. Can I create, if I was just to put, because that's 1,000, if I was to just put 500 there, create a new explanation. Look, it split that 500 into 2. Wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but that's pretty cool. So I can split, so that could have been, part for the invoice and part for, something else. Again, I'll just code that and explain, basically explaining the balance. So you can see that it's got one date against the 2 entries, and I'm literally working this out as I go. So we can split the entry, and I'm sure I could do exactly the same for a payment that was a receipt. Now in terms of bank rules, and again I'm no expert on FreeAgent, I've literally just started taking a look at it. Now what I thought was pretty neat, in fact, is, so if I look at what is in for approval, and you'll get actually some of these might fall into both. I'll just I'll double check it. I say I'm not 100% sure. It has started learning or picking out some AI, I think, just on general things, because I can see it's got National Federation of Businesses subscriptions, go cardless, but it doesn't know tax filer is going to computer software. That's probably fair enough, to be honest. And I've got drive card, motor expenses, so I can go through these. So if I'm happy that service charges, bank charges, drive card is motor, that's a refund. Intuit, £9.36. I've got go cardless. So I'm happy that they are correctly coded. I've got 252 waiting for approval. I can approve those explanations. You can also remove the explanations if you're not happy with how FreeAgent is doing that. I'll just turn that pop off down. So I'll just click approve those explanations. So again, that's working through those. So far that looks okay. Now, in terms of actually editing your own rules, I've not fully found this. Now, what I did find, because you've got the ability of using the more option, you've got guest rules, where FreeAgent is pretty much coming up with its own explanations on or how it thinks it's learning, and you can turn on or off some of these automation options. We've got automated explanations to give you a head start. Learning algorithms will automatically explain transactions that haven't been explained by you before, e.g. on-time trains automatically explained by travel, which explains why it was putting drive card to motor expenses, which is pretty accurate, to be fair. So you can turn those options on or off. So I don't think I haven't seen that you can actually sort of create your own rules, but you may not need to, based on some of these things that we have here. And I have seen this excluded terms, so whether turning some of these off will put it into excluded. Again, I've not fully investigated that. So I have been able to match, I've been able to add entries, I've been able to split the entries. If I just come back to my banking, let me just, how do I go back? Let's go back to bank accounts. Open this one up. If I thought I had let's got some money in, so I've got a possible invoice. That is your sort of search. I could then apply it against a different invoice if necessary. Now I can approve. That's only for part. If I was to approve, and I've already put that through, haven't I? Approve and save those changes, and now I've got another one. Explain the transaction. So I've got two there. Again, I might need to investigate that a little bit better. What I will do before the next video on reconciliations is I'll tidy some of these up a little bit, and let's say we've got hardly any left. So at the moment, just coming back, I've got all the transactions that have come through. I've still got a few in here which are unexplained. Change that to all time periods, which I need to work through. I've got some left for approval, and then all of my transactions. So your all transactions should show those that have been approved, explained, and those that have still not yet been explained. And I think even from the all transactions, you can explain them from here or within your unexplained screen. So all in all, I mean, I think it's pretty simple actually. I do quite like it. Considering it's pretty new to me, especially the way that's automatically brought quite a lot through in here for approval. Can I actually sort by description in here? So yeah, you can see that I've got 360 comms, who I've used for a little while for telephone. Can I do them all in a batch? Oh yeah, great. So if I could tick one and then hit shift key and then tick the other box, just like doing a lot of browser applications, all of those are selected, so I could approve all of those 6. And again, I've got BT, and approve all of those. Yeah, so I could get through a lot of transactions in FreeAgent, to be fair, pretty quickly. Even without any outstanding balances, they could get coded quite quick. So yeah, I'm quite impressed, to be fair. So next, we'll take a look at Xero. So I'm in Xero now, and from my dashboard, I'll select to go to my fixed fee account. Where in this bank area, I've got my bank details, the current bank statement balance, what the balance is in Xero, and ideally at some point we want to get those to agree. Below that, what I've got is 3 tabs essentially. I've got items. These it says reconcile. It means things that I need to deal with, basically. From what I gather, I've got my bank statements, which is basically a list of the transactions that have come through from the bank feed. And with Xero, when I connected, I was able to go up to 12 months back. So I was able to go back as far as September 23. And again, I didn't really want to deal with all of those entries. It was just to see how far I could go back. What I was able to do is I was able to go to the so I can't sort these columns, but what I can do is I could go to the last page, which is what in fact I did do. So if I went straight to the last page, I was able to tick all of those on that page, and then when they were all ticked, I could choose the option to delete them all. And deleted basically means that they're sort of removed from, I don't need to bother reconciling them, I don't need to deal with them. But what is good, what I did think was quite nice, is that although I did delete them, they still remain here in this sort of history. And just while I'm here, can I undelete those? I'm guessing I probably can. Yeah, I can restore them. So that's good. So now, so into Reconcile, where I actually need to deal with the entries that have come through on my bank feed. So, like I had with FreeAgent, I wasn't actually able to import any invoices. So with Sage, Zoho and QuickBooks, I can import customer invoices historically on a CSV to help with your opening balances. I couldn't do that. You need a third-party app if you want to import stuff like that. So I've created a few invoices manually. What I can see here is that when you do get a match, it's sort of highlighted. So I've got £1,000 has come in. So on the left hand side, these are basically the bank bank transactions, and on the right is how I'm dealing with it. So if I'm taking a look at this £1,000 that's come in, it says there's a match, but it also says there's another possible match against that, which is nice because that 1,000 could be could relate to sort of 6 different invoices that all could be 1,000. So if I were to select that, I could select one of the other invoices and mark it as paid by clicking on the OK. So once you got the agreed value of the 1,000, I could click OK. That's going to remove it from the list. Again, I'll just click OK against that one. We'll take a look at find and match next. As I mentioned a minute ago, you've got the entries that have come through from the bank on your left and how you're going to deal with them on the right. Xero will default to how perhaps you might want to deal with those entries, because it could be a match, you might need to create them, it could be a transfer to another bank. You've got a discuss option. I'm not quite sure what that does. Perhaps, you can put a note on there and then come back to it. I'm guessing. I'm not actually used it yet. But you also do have find and match. So a minute ago I put in a couple of bills for 1,000 and 200, and that's what that payment should be for. So if I go to find and match, QuickBooks has found a couple of I said QuickBooks then. Xero has found a couple of unpaid balances, 1,000 and 200. And once I've selected the two items that add up to the amount, you can see that that has gone completely shaded in that sort of greeny colour there. So once all is selected, I can now click OK, and that's dealt with. So we've done a match, we've done find a match. So the next thing I want to do is do a create, and this is automatically sort of defaulted. I have created some rules in here already, so I will double check to see whether I created a rule for telephone or whether it's just started to learn. But you can see that I've got BT automatically going to telephone and internet, so I'm just going to click OK against that one. Now what I have next here is Hiscox Insurance, and I'm going to choose to put in a category which is going to be insurance. I'll just put insurance in the description, and now I've noticed that you do actually have to put a payee in, so I'll put in here Hiscox and add a new contact. So now that all of those fields are complete, I can click OK against that. So let's take a look at the bank rules. If I go towards the top and choose to manage this account, you can see that we've got the option bank rules. So let me go in here. So I have created one or two in here already. I've got bank charges and drawings. So let me choose just to create another rule, and I'll just choose any conditions that match, and I'll just put that the text field contains the words drive card, and I'll put drive card and add those as a new contact. And this can be against particular values or a percentage, and I'm going to go straight to 100% of the cost. So let me choose to add a new, actually add a line here. I'll just put fuel, and I've got motor expenses. Let me just put travel. And again, I've got VAT disabled on all of these files at the moment. I've got a reference, I don't need to set that, so let me just save that rule. Let me just delete that line out. Save. Now if I come back to my bank accounts, you can see now that that rule has been applied, and I've got the OK against that. Now you will see if you've got rules in place, because as an example there I've got a transfer with a rule in place. I've got edit rule, don't apply the rule, so I could put something in manually, and as well as actually going to that manage rules area, at the top of the screen against entries that come in, you've got this option there, within options in fact, to create bank rule off of the back of it. Okay, let's look at the split option next. I'll just take this 210 where I've got the option to create, and I'll choose to add details. And I'll put on here John Smith as the new contact, and we can put in here the details and split it over a couple of different account categories. So I'll put 105, 105. Let's just put travel, training, doesn't really matter for today, and cost of sales. So both those values add up to the total being paid out, and I can choose to mark that as reconciled. So we've matched, we've split, we've added, we've created some rules. One thing we can't do that I don't think we can do is the option of doing sort of batch adding. So where I had lots of matches, lots of rules already in place, I did have to click on go, each one separately, which it didn't take me that long, to be honest, but if I did have a lot to do, the batch option is preferable. If I'm honest, I'd like that. So I might be missing something. Again, I've only just started looking at Xero here. All in all, yeah, it's pretty good. Does everything that you sort of really need it to. I think really from the bank perspective, just the batch feature would be nice there. So into QuickBooks Online now, and I'm going to head to transactions and then select bank transactions. So I've put the initial bank connection in, like with all of the other software providers. I've not dealt with any of the transactions at all. The first thing I come across now is this train QB, and where I can start reviewing some of my expenses. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do that. I'll say no, I'm not VAT registered in this example. So service charge, it's prompting me to select bank charges. Perfect. What I have here, Intuit, to go to subscriptions, so I'll select those. Hiscox to insurance, and that's for I'll just put that for drawings or director's loans. So that's a new one, so I initially need to make sure that is a completely new category, in fact. So let me put that to just for current liabilities for now. I'll change that to director's loans. Save and close. So done on that one. Drive, I'll choose travel for that. That's telephone. British Telecom, I can select a different one, which should be telephone. I'll just use travel for that particular one. It should be motor expenses really, but we'll just have a look. Go cardless. I'll select a different one. Let's just put that to subscriptions if we've got it in there. That'll do for now. So QuickBooks is analysing a lot of expenses directly. Let's just say that needs to go to rent in this example. Though it's drawings really, but let's use rent for today. So all of those regular payments that it's found through my historic bank statements from the last sort of 12 months or so, actually 14, 15 months. It's going to start analysing how do I want to sort of treat them. So I'll just click next on those, and we can say yes, that's always bank charges. Yep, so agree on those. And I can go next. Is that always insurance? Yeah, always insurance. Always put those to travel. I'm doing this fairly quickly, so I'll probably use some different categories in the real world, but just for speed, let me just try and plough through these so we can see how they work. Telecom, always to telephone. Yeah, always to travel. Yeah, always to subscriptions. And that always to rent. So during this process, in the background, QuickBooks is going to start creating some bank rules based on those preferences, and will start categorizing some of those transactions for me. So that's basically just done 150 transactions in that one hit, which is pretty neat. So I've got a few that are left. I've got 296 left. Now what I do have, because there's basically 16 months or so worth of entries through here, I could in fact, let me say, if I don't want to go back that far, so I can sort this in date order. So these are all my transactions, and let's see how many we've got on per page in my settings. Let's move that to 300 per page. So I've selected everything between sort of April 23 and March 24. I'm actually going to choose to exclude those, so I don't have to deal with every single one of those. So let me just exclude those items. So that has sort of brought my list down somewhat. So what I have on here is I've got my one single bank that's been connected, showing what my live bank balance is and what is the balance in QuickBooks at the moment. Now, because I've just dealt with loads of payments out and no payments in at all, we've got a negative value there over the last sort of 16, 18 months or so. What's left is basically receipts that are coming in. Now what I can do is I did import some invoices, basically just some invoices for July. So when I come down here, I've got some matches against some of my unpaid invoices. So we want to deal with our matches first. So if I come into my sort of all transactions and look for some of my suggested matches, and this will filter this list down now, so where I've just got matches for my unpaid invoices. Some of these, so I can see the one at the top as an example, I've got 8 potential matches against the £12, so I can look at and see who the customer is and make sure that the correct customer is selected. Just for these purposes, I will just agree that for now, just for speed. Where I can actually see that I've got basically a single match, what I'll do here is I just simply select all of these single match items. And as soon as I select one or more, at the top I've got the ability of accepting. So in the real world I would check these fully, but just for speed, I'm going to say I'm happy with all of those, and I can accept all of those matches. So we can agree the match. I must have missed one or two of these, so let me just select those ones again, and I'll accept those matches. And there we go. I think I've selected one or two too many there, and now I've got one or two left over, and I'll just remove that down. Let me just do a little refresh, probably me just doing something a little bit too quickly, as it may have upset that slightly as I've been working through it. So what I've done so far is I've matched some of my transactions, and I can also match some of those receipts against multiple customers there in a batch. What I'm also able to do is, if I can sort any of these columns. So if I'm simply adding an entry, like at this single entry at the top, so I had some sort of vehicle repairs done, then in a case of just doing a single add, what I can do, it's not mandatory to actually put a supplier or customer's name in. I could put in here motor vehicle expenses. Well, I don't actually have that category here, so just for today I'll just put travel. I'll put it into travelling. That's the cost incurred, putting it to travel. We don't have VAT enabled on this file, and I can simply add it. So as a expense hits the bank statement, I can select the entry, choose the category and add. Simple as that. What I'm also able to do, like I did with the FreeAgent on a little bit earlier, is I can sort by description. What we actually have an extra benefit in here is that if I just go to my settings, I can turn on this grouping, and what QuickBooks will do is it will start to group by description. Now some of these have got slightly different descriptions, but you can see where I've got one or two where this description is exactly the same. I can select the item at the top, and as an example, if these were all just for sales, I could choose to edit and say we'll treat those as a deposit maybe, and they could all hit into sales, and I could apply and accept all of those entries because this is all for additional income. And because I've selected multiple items there, it's prompting me to create a rule off the back of that. I'll come back and create a rule in a moment, so I'll just close that down. So I've created, I've looked at some matches so far. I've also done some batch matching. I've added a single item. What I might want to do is I may want to create an item with a split. So as an example, I'll use, let me come down to see what my payments, I'll use this one here. So this is a payment to HMRC, but we'll treat it as something completely different. I've got a payment that's gone out, and I can choose to split it between multiple categories. So I can choose to split. I could put a supplier's name in if I wanted to. I can leave it blank. I could have a particular amount go into one category, say legal professional, and I'll have advertising on another line. So we could put in the details if necessary, and that could be 1,000 or 1,500, let's say, against one category, and against the remaining category I'll put 1,367.82. So I can split that single bank payment over multiple cost categories, and you can do the same with your income categories too. So I'll just choose to apply and accept. What I will do is I'll just choose to turn that grouping off. Now, by using that sort of train QuickBooks at the beginning, I've got some bank rules in place. If I just take a look at my bank rules, let's just go to rules. I can see I've got service charges. In fact, now this is something that I might need to be aware of, and I didn't check it fully, is because my service charges, it's got some slightly different references. It's created a rule for nearly every reference. So yeah, that's something that I overlooked. Something to bear in mind when you're setting up Train QuickBooks is just to see how many bank rules do I actually need here. And that's actually created quite a lot of rules when I wasn't expecting that many. And that probably accounts for why I still have some British Telecom transactions that have gone through and not created the rule for. Could be slightly my fault for not checking it carefully enough as I've gone through, but even so, perhaps it's just something that we need to be aware of. If I do have too many rules in here, in fact in this example I'm going to select every single one of them and delete them all. And I'll show you how we can then just create another bank rule from scratch, so they won't appear in the future. And I'll just come back to my bank transactions. So what I will do is let's create a rule now for this British Telecom, and I'll create a rule from the entry, and let's just call this BT. And your rule can be for money going out or for money coming in. So I'm going to select it for money coming out, and it can be for all bank accounts or a specific account. And I'll put in here when the bank text contains the words British Telecom, and I'll take that reference out because that's what's causing us a little bit of an issue. Now I can test that rule to see how many transactions. There's 5 transactions. Treat it as an expense. 2 telephone, and you can choose to either auto add or just leave it for you to review. So you can auto add it later and edit it, but for now I'll just leave it for me to review, and I'll actually take the reference out of that. So I'll just choose to save. So by creating that rule now, what I'll see, and I'll just close that pop-up, is I have those entries there. So although those 5 entries with the rules against them, I can now choose to accept. Now if we have created a rule from the bank feed, as I just have, I can find them by just going back to that rules tab. I'll only have the one rule there now because I've deleted all the ones previously. So there's my British Telecom rule, which I can go back and I can edit that at any time. Now while I'm here, let me just create another rule very quickly. And for this, I might use it just to tidy up all of the other receipts that I have in. And this can be for the money coming in. Historically, just to wipe it off of my statement for now. And I can just put when the amount is, let's just put on here, if I put is greater than £1, then I could test that rule and see how many entries have I got left which are greater than £1. There are 58 left. I could say, well, this, I'll just put it to sales in this example, and here I could choose to auto add. And if this was being auto added, as you can see as I'm just testing this, it'll take a second or two while it's applying that rule to all of the entries that are left. It's flagged here as an auto add, and if I come back to my bank transactions, I've now only got 9 left to deal with. Now I will have a big difference between my balance and my QuickBooks balance because I excluded a lot of items, so that's going to create a bit of havoc. And also right at the beginning, because I used the Train QuickBooks, I basically coded lots of transactions from April up until today, April 23 up until today, but I went in and I excluded pretty much all of my income from April up until April 23 to April 24, so I've got like a year's worth of income that's not been posted. However, if I wanted to go back, I could go back to that excluded area and I could undo those exclusions, and I could do them all. I could do them in a bulk as well. I could bulk undo anything that has been excluded. So just coming back in my items to review, one thing we haven't done is try to find a match, and I'll just select this item, this payment that's gone out for 2614. So I don't want to create a new transaction because I know that it should already be in QuickBooks somewhere. So I want to try to create a match. So I'll select the match option, and we can see now it's found it. It's dated January 2024, even though it didn't hit the bank account until August 24. But if that was the correct one, then I can accept that as the match. So I'll just click on the match and we can accept that payment. Okay, so we've matched transactions, matched them in bulk, we've added new transactions, we've created a split, we've created bank rules, and we're able to find entries as well. We've gone through all of the different software providers, a few differences between all of them. Some are, I've got some nice little touches, some slightly different. So it all depends on what you get used to using, basically. Just a quick refresher, we were in Sage initially. So there we've got, at the moment, I've got 27 transactions left in draft to review before I reconcile it. Within Zoho, when I was working through the Zoho account, I've got 14 transactions that I need to deal with left within there. In FreeAgent, I've still got 49 unexplained transactions within all my periods, which I need to go through. In Xero, what have we got left? I've only got 5 transactions left within here to sort of finish off, and within my QuickBooks file I've got 8 transactions. So what I'll do is I'm going to sort of tidy all of those up so I've got nothing left to be reviewed in any of them, and in episode 4 we'll be looking at reconciling those accounts back to the bank statement. So they'll all have the same ending balance, but there should be some unreconciled items left in each one. So we'll see how that works. I hope you found this video content useful and interesting. If you do, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.